I'm very interested I'm always interested in people's sort of origin stories and where they came from and what they did, especially before they moved into what they do now. Yeah, I mean, your background is quite extraordinary. Your mother's family owned a cotton mill, which makes you sound like you're from...
Cotton mills?
Cotton mills?
Mills?
Do they still have cotton? Is the
No,
cotton mill business...
we sold out to Courtauld just before they started making it in India.
Right. And your father's family had an engineering companies?
Well, flour mills. It's always mills.
It's always mills.
Dark satanic mills. And my grandfather was not the oldest son, so he started a building and civil engineering business, which my father inherited, which did much better than the mills.
So that's it's quite a sort of privileged background. I guess you were a wealthy family.
Yeah, well, fairly rich, yeah.
Yeah. But then you went on to do, as you were saying backstage, you became a manager of a McDonald's at one point.
There's no limit.
What drew you to be work at McDonald's?
I never really took the idea of career and me very seriously. For a start, I was very, very dyslexic, and still am. And so that was interpreted as not very bright, because we didn't have fancy diagnoses in those days. So this not very bright girl was sent to, first of all, Switzerland,
yes,
because my parents hoped that I would meet some rich, fancy people there and I would marry a lord. That didn't go well. I didn't marry a lord. And after that, they thought, well, maybe you should do a secretarial course and then you might marry your boss. That didn't go well either. I mean, why would you send somebody to secretarial college when they can't spell before spell check? Not very bright, I think, is the answer to that. So I did a secretarial course, and obviously I was a hopeless secretary. So luckily, I got promoted to being a clerk in a firm of solicitors. Right. And I collected debts through the county court, and they gave me my own typist, which was very sweet of them. And when I got bored of being in Oxford when I did these things, I wanted to go to big London. And I just looked for jobs, and I saw that McDonald's were hiring. So I thought, yeah, burgers, as many as I can eat. So I went to McDonald's, and meteoric rise. I got my 3 stars in as many months. And I was manager after 4 months. I mean, fantastic. Oxford Circus branch near the BBC.
That's a good one.
Yeah, thanks very much. And so that was me at McDonald's. It was a bit like a gap year, really, because it was like travelling but not going in. You know, I learnt so much about people because I'd only met posh people before.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it was.
Actually, I've missed something out.
What?
I've missed a really big bit out.
What have you missed out?
Between the solicitor's clerk and the McDonald's, I was a private detective for 2 years.
Wow, that is a big thing.
I was being a bit shady about that. But
was the McDonald's thing just to cover for a case?
No, what it was that would have been fun. No, what it was like when I was working as a solicitor's clerk, I had to collect debts through the county court, and of course we had a load of absconding debtors. So we used an ex-policeman to try and track down, who was calling himself an inquiry agent, to try and track down debtors, but he was hopeless. So I thought, well, I'd have a go after work, and I was really good, because I'd go to someone's place, and I'd go, does Joe live here? And they said, no, he's gone with his mum. Well, of course he's gone back to his mum. What's his mum's address again? And so I got and then when I met Joe, I go, Joe, the hire purchase agreement for the fridge. But my wife took it. I went, I know, Joe, but you signed the agreement. And I said, what can you pay? And he went, £4 a month. I said, make it 50p, and then you're going to do it, and then we'll all go away. And so I got more money back than sort of taking people to court, because I made friends with them, and I think that might have been the basis of my psychotherapy training.
Right.
Be nice, and people are good. But I did get bored of doing that after a while, which is why I went to London.
So you went to London to work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't sound, that doesn't sound as interesting as being a private detective.
Oh, it's so much more interesting. I learned about computer systems because they were just putting computers online to do stock taking.
Right.
Very interesting, actually.
What year was that? What year would that have
Oh, we're talking 70s, I think.
Because I worked at
No, maybe early 80s. I can't remember.
in the late 80s. In 1989, I worked at the British BT writing the phone book, and they were only going over to computers then. So I only worked there for about 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks you did it all by hand, and then you did a computer course, and then you started the last 2 weeks you were typing them into the computer. So that's if BT. If the phone book wasn't computerized until the late 80s, and McDonald's was computerized.
No, we were doing computerized stock takes.
Right,
I'd say mid 80s, and it was very exciting. And because I had that experience, I got a job in Price Waterhouse as a IT person.
Right.
I may have invented the phrase, have you tried turning it off and on again? I'd read the manual and nobody else could be bothered. So that's why I became an IT person.
I mean, it's you'd sort of drifting.
Oh,
around
I had
from
no
thing to-
direction. I couldn't care less. I had rent to pay and parties to go to, and I wasn't really bothered what I did while I was sort of semi-conscious during the day.
Right. And so you sort of did a degree sort of as a mature student in fine art?
See, what happened was some of my mill-owning aunts gave me some money before they died. They gave it to me before they died, which was incredibly generous. And so I didn't have to work. Auntie Joan gave me £50,000 worth of Glaxo shares.
Wow.
And so I didn't have to work. So I went to art school.
I wish I had a mill-owning aunt.
Yeah, I bet. It was great. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. And so how did you get into psychotherapy from there?
I've always tried to resist it.
Yeah.
I've always fought against it. It's a bit like you've got a vocation, you fight against it. No, I don't want to go there. No. But I'd find my feet going to the Swiss Cottage Library the whole time, which they've got a massive psychology section. And I'd sort of spend my weekends reading psychology, thinking, this is just research for doing some art. And, I tried to resist it. And I did all my art about sort of psychology and stuff. So I thought, maybe you really do want to read about psychology a little bit more. And so I didn't just become a psychotherapist. First of all, I did some volunteering at a suicide helpline. And I did that for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I did one tiny little foundation counselling course. And I thought that would be enough. And of course it wasn't, and I got hooked.
Yeah.
And then I did a psychotherapy course, and then I did an advanced psychotherapy course, and then I did a supervision course, and then I'm still doing courses. I love courses.
Yeah.